days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from offseason to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about the 49ers coaching carousel because players move all the time.
Accurate.
But apparently in San Francisco, so do coaches. It also helps when you have a staff where, other teams in the league value them. So you have head coaching changes. Anytime you have a guy leaving the roster to become a head coach, usually they're going to take coaches with them as well. And that's what's happened. But the 49ers have had a lot of moves, some good, some questionable. But we're going to get all through it right now.
And we're going to go through all of them. We're going to go through all the changes that have happened so far, as well as talk about positions they still they're going to need to fill in some way, shape, or form, as well as whether or not we may see some promotions in those categories to those positions, or if there's some maybe outside names that could be guys that they're looking to target. Who knows? Make sure you hit the like button right now, though, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that way you don't miss out on all of the content we have coming out. All free agency, all pre-combine, all post-combine, all pre-draft, live during draft, and post-draft as well. You're not going to want to miss out on any of it, Ant, because we hit on a lot of things last year. We truly did. We hit on a lot of things, especially draft stuff as well, and just calling out guys we thought were going to have some good years and ended up having some big years for other teams, and some of them for the 49ers as well. So we'll see. We'll talk about all of this. We'll get into it, but let's start with some of the changes that were already made, the ones that we already know about. The John Embry situation, that tight end room, there's already been a corresponding move and a promotion because of it. But John Embry wouldn't come to an agreement with the Niners. They wanted him to basically drop the assistant head coach title. Yeah. They wanted to make a move and bring in, obviously, the guy they ended up bringing in, Anthony Lynn. But they wanted him to drop that title. He didn't want to. They amicably decide to split and go their separate ways, which left the Niners without a tight ends coach. And they subsequently went out and promoted who, Ant? Who was the guy they promoted?
Brian Fleury. He was a quality control coach, and they decided that he was going to be the guy that was going to take over the tight ends. Kyle Shanahan knows that he's going to have coaches that constantly leave, so he has to continually have, a line of succession. A guy leaves, you're able to fill it. It was an interesting situation with John Embry because I believe that the coaches and the players really like him. And an assistant head coach, you want to have a guy like him that's stable, that's able to handle things in case. But when it came down to it, adding an Anthony Lynn, knowing you're probably going to lose Mike McDaniel, you needed to add Anthony Lynn because of how good he is as a coach in the run game. The things that he'll bring to the offensive coaching staff were invaluable to what Kyle Shanahan wanted to do. This whole season, Kyle Shanahan spent time working with the pass game, developing the game plans for the pass game, and Mike McDaniel took care of the run game, and then they would come together and work on it together collectively. But you were going to lose that. He had a feeling Mike McDaniel was going to be gone. He knew Anthony Lynn was out there. But you're not just going to bring Anthony Lynn in as a run game specialist. He has been a head coach and a proven commodity in this league. His run games are always good. So you needed to entice him with something. And he had more value as an assistant head coach than somebody like John Embry because Anthony Lynn has also been a head coach. He knows about making decisions at pivotal times. You needed to add him to your roster. You need to add him to your roster of coaches. It was a must. It sucks having to ask Embry to take a pay cut. That sucks because you never want to do that to somebody. I guarantee it was eating them up inside. And Embry had to do what was necessary for him. He knew that he couldn't take that pay cut. He wasn't wanting a demotion, but he went ahead and decided that it was time for him to move on. And he did, and it ends up working out because he lands in Miami with Mike McDaniel in the same role that he originally had with the 49ers.
It actually kind of makes sense, in all honesty. He ends up getting the exact thing that he wants, which is to be an assistant head coach and to work with in a system that he's familiar with. And he gets to do that in Miami. So he lands on his feet. The Niners land on their feet. It ends up being a win-win for all parties. It just felt like a win-loss at the time because Embry was leaving San Francisco. However, I think the addition of Anthony Lynn, I think you and I both agree, if it's not Mike McDaniel that's being the run game coordinator, Anthony Lynn is more than capable. I mean, this is a huge signing for San Francisco. Replacing Mike McDaniel with that guy and what he's been able to do consistently in the league. This isn't a one-trick pony. He didn't go to the Chargers and just do it for a couple of years and that's it. I mean, his run games have been top 10 in the league, except for 1 year in which it was 11th. You brought that up in a pre-show, which I loved the number because I knew it was top 10 and a handful of top 5s in a few of those years. I didn't realize it was top 10 all but 1 year that he's been involved with offense. That is absolutely incredible and speaks to his understanding of the run game and how creative it's been and the amount of success he's been able to have no matter where he is with, no matter what the pieces are. Going from Melvin Gordon to Austin Eckler, a lot of people thought there was going to be a drop-off because of the different styles of runner. No drop-off for Anthony Lynn, and he just finds a way to keep things turning no matter the change. So, listen, I think this was absolutely phenomenal. It was incredible. It was a great addition. Promoting Brian Fleury is a guy who has spent a lot of time with Kyle Shanahan and has been around Kyle Shanahan's systems for a lot of years. So he understands what is required of the tight end room. And he was a quality control guy. He was a quality control offensive guy last year. That's what he specialized in. So he spent a lot of time in the offensive room at a lot of different positions. And I imagine he spent a lot of time around Kyle with the passing game. So because of that, Kyle feels comfortable enough with this guy moving forward and taking that job and going along with it. And there's going to be an assistant that he brings in somewhere down the road that he knows some good things about, that's going to be able to help bolster that room a little bit and give that guy some support. And I imagine Anthony Lynn's going to be able to provide him some support in that area, being a guy who's very familiar with run game stuff and what he's going to need at the tight end room in the run game.
Adding Anthony Lynn as an assistant head coach as well, where he can help manage the other coaches. That is something you kind of mentioned there. Is so important and invaluable because Kyle Shanahan does spend a lot of time preparing on offense. When you're putting together game plans and you're preparing yourself as a play caller, you can sometimes neglect the attention you need to put on other spots. So you had a special teams coordinator like Richie Hightower, and there's so many questions about the special teams. Somebody like Anthony Lynn would be able to handle that, where it's a little bit different with John Embry. So I think somebody that comes in that commands a room like Anthony Lynn, being able to go to a new special teams coordinator and saying to him, like, hey, these are the things me and Kyle think that you need to fix, or Kyle said, hey, these things need to be done, is going to be invaluable. You need a coach to coach coaches, and that is something that, Kyle can lean on Anthony Lynn for. I know they made all the jokes about, the late times in the game where he made mistakes, with the clock management. Maybe that's not a value. They also don't like, how Kyle Shanahan handles it, even though the 49ers are the second best offense scoring at the end of halves. But that's neither here nor there. The one thing I'll say, though, is other offensive quality control coaches for Kyle Shanahan in the past, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, those guys were quality control coaches for Kyle Shanahan, and both of them are pretty successful head coaches. So someone like Fleury getting, Kyle Shanahan to give him the stamp of approval is big for him, and he knows now he's on a fast track to moving himself up. That's why coaches want to coach with Kyle Shanahan.
Accurate.
They know that opportunities are going to come. We've seen it now 2 consecutive seasons. Robert Saleh leaves. He takes John Benton. He takes the other LaFleur, yes, Mike LaFleur, with him. And they're set up. The other LaFleur. Yeah. I mean, and who made the right decision?
Can we just make a dodgeball to the other LaFleur?
Well, I mean, the thing is, right, who made the right choice? LaFleur becoming an offensive coordinator for the Jets? Or was it Mike McDaniel, who stayed with the 49ers, became the offensive coordinator, and then turned that into the Miami Dolphins head coaching job?
In 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
Do you remember when I said they were more likely for McDaniel to get a job than for DeMeco Ryans, and Jay Hill tried to laugh me off the stage?
He did try and laugh you off the stage. Big yikes, Jay Hill.
It didn't work. But coaches want to coach with Kyle Shanahan, and this is a good opportunity for Fleury. I think that he can really elevate his game, and maybe he's somebody to watch in the future as he moves up with the coaching ranks.
That's true, Ant. And there's another promotion to talk about, but we'll get to Mr. Hankerson's promotion, because before you can get to Hankerson's promotion, you have to talk about what happened that led to it. We just talked about it, right? John Embry lands in Miami as an assistant head coach to one Mike McDaniels, our run game coordinator. Right? All of these things kind of happen in sequence. Mike McDaniels hasn't officially been hired yet, but Anthony Lynn gets named as the assistant head coach, and you and I both were kind of like, well, you know what that probably means. And sure enough, Mike McDaniels takes the job. He becomes the Miami head coach, and with him goes Wes Welker, who keeps the same role. He's a wide receiver coach in Miami. A lot of people, why would he make a lateral move? Well, it's obviously because he was the reason, Ant. Wes Welker. He was the reason that Brandon Ayuk was in the doghouse, and now Kyle Shanahan wants nothing to do with Wes Welker. If that were true, Wes Welker would have been gone in the middle of the season. The Niners would have made the move and promoted Leonard Hankerson earlier to make that the case. Seeing as you promoted a quality control coach in Leonard Hankerson up to wide receiver coach now, if you were really truly that pissed off at Wes Welker and about the Brandon Ayuk situation, you would have moved off of it and got the drama out of the way. That's not what happened. Wes Welker is going with McDaniel for a handful of reasons, but one of which I think you brought up and we talked about a little bit is family.
Yeah, his family's out there in Florida. They never made the trip over here, so he's been away from them when he's been coaching. So this is an opportunity for him to get closer to family. He played for the Miami Dolphins. He's familiar with the organization.
Accurate.
To me, it makes sense. He's also familiar with the AFC East. So for Wes Welker, yeah, to move, but there could be some potential there for him to move up eventually with Mike McDaniel. We know McDaniel's going to call the offense, and I'm really interested to see how he does calling the plays. I think that's going to be fun.
Especially since they have a running back over there that was with San Francisco and Salvon Ahmed that, he was very big on and very high on, and they could do some things with it, especially since that Miami run game has been lackluster the past
and they
few
have
years.
Money to spend.
Accurate.
They have a lot of money to spend. And I think you're seeing the normal thing. Kyle Shanahan talked about this last year when Robert Saleh left, is they had a conversation about what assistants he was going to allow him to go with. Because Kyle Shanahan wants these guys to be successful, and he wants to see guys get, the opportunities that he got. I think Embry was kind of more thrown in there because of the situation with Anthony Lynn. It ended up becoming a necessity, but I think Wes Welker was probably always going to go. In fact, I mentioned that before. I thought
you did.
If Mike McDaniel got hired by Miami, that Wes Welker was going to go. And I think it has less to do with how he was feeling inside the organization, but more about getting to a different situation, because I do believe he wants to move up. I think he wants to be a offensive coordinator one day.
And what better way than in the situation? I mean, San Francisco is a great situation for wide receivers with Brandon Ayuk, with the development of Juwan Jennings. You have to credit a lot of that to what Wes Welker has already been able to do, as well as Deebo Samuel in the role he's played. But, I mean, is there a better potential wide receiver position or place to coach than Miami with the young guys that they have and some of the big names they already have, with a new young head coach who's going to take some pressure off the pass game aspect by installing a run game that's going to be able to do some things, as well as all the money in the cap that you just brought up. It's a great situation for Wes, and you get to be closer to your family. It doesn't seem like a win-lose or a lose-win. This is just a win-win situation for him.
A situation that has been brought up is, how big of a loss do you think it was to lose Mike McDaniel? I know we added Anthony Lynn, but what do you think that give and take is, losing Mike McDaniel as, is he, like some people said, is he the actual architect, that he's really the reason that Kyle Shanahan has had the success that he's had? Because a lot of people are throwing that out there, that maybe it's been McDaniel the whole time. Do you think it's that case, or do you think it's one of those things where they just work really well together? They were good. He's going to be missed, but Kyle Shanahan did a pretty good job putting it together.
Does everyone truly believe that?
I mean, think people want to, right?
I think people want to, but Can we flash back to Atlanta?
Mike McDaniel was there.
I'm aware that he was there, but was his responsibilities the same as it was now? No way.
No, there's not.
Number one, there's no way. Number two, the reliance was on the pass game. Atlanta's success came from Matt Ryan's ability to throw the football and them getting the ball to Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu in space. Like, the run game was a supplement to the pass game. Like, they did enough in the run game to keep things honest, but Kyle knew what he had there with the weapons he had at the tight end position, at the wide receiver position, and with the defense they had. Like, throwing the ball was the bread and butter, and the run game was a supplement to that. It was the inverse. You didn't have necessarily the talent that you wanted to. You had capable backs that could get it done, but your strength was in the pass game, and they leaned on their strength because that's what their team was and the identity was built around. Do I think that Mike McDaniels is one heck of a head coach and one wizard in the run game? Absolutely. Do we think that he's been that the entirety of the time that he's been a coach in the league? No. He learned that from somewhere. I wonder who he learned that from, Ant.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel saying that he didn't want anyone else to call plays besides Kyle Shanahan, because Kyle Shanahan's one of the best play callers in the world, I think carries some weight. Also, the fact that he said that Kyle Shanahan was very collaborative. So Kyle Shanahan was willing to listen to Mike McDaniel. So I do think they played together. I think that the fact that Mike McDaniel's gone is a loss for the 49ers.
Agreed.
But I believe that Kyle Shanahan did the absolute best he could to replace that with Anthony Lynn,
Accurate.
A guy that is very good in the run game, and also very familiar with Kyle Shanahan, with not just Kyle, but also Mike Shanahan and the system that they're going to run.
Yep.
That familiarity was so important. So is it a loss to lose Mike McDaniel? Of course. The guy's an absolute wizard. You heard all the coaches talk. All the players talking about it.
Yeah.
But the best scenario was Anthony Lynn.
I think that's the thing, right? As big of a loss as Mike McDaniel is, I think you made the best possible decision to alleviate the loss of Mike McDaniel. You brought someone in who not only understands the system, but is going to understand the system and be able to put things together in a slightly different way than we saw with Mike McDaniel, but at an extremely high level still. This is going to be slightly different.
Well, the thing to remember, though, is Kyle Shanahan and also the other offensive coaches remember how Mike McDaniel was approaching the run game.
Absolutely.
They have all that stored in their mind. They can go back on all that Now you infuse some new information from what Anthony Lynn wants to bring.
It's a meshing, right?
It is. It's a meshing. If you put it together, it can sometimes be very dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, I loved offense and I loved run game. One of the things I loved the most was coming up with something new that we had never done before. And
every year, right? Every year when you and I coached together, there was a new wrinkle to the run game. Not a complete overhauling necessarily of the run game, but a wrinkle. Small change.
Yep.
Sometimes it felt like a big change because it was so different, but we're playing off old terminology. You're using similar schemes in terms of your setup and how you get to this point. But a change. And that's what this is, right? It's just a change. And you're going to do a lot of things you did similarly with Mike McDaniel, but now you're going to be able to bring in that outside perspective in Anthony Lynn, who's gone out and had success doing things his way, and you'll be able to take what you've gotten from Mike McDaniel, take what you've gotten from Kyle Shanahan, and now add this in as well. I would say this is a meshing of three great minds offensively in terms of understanding the run game and how to set it up, putting it into something new.
Yeah, and one thing that's come up over the weekend was Bobby Turner, the running back coach, is no longer listed on the 49ers website of roster of coaches.
Oh, boy.
There has been whispers that Bobby Turner, who is, I believe, 66 years old,
older guy,
has been leaning towards retirement at some point. Could it be that Bobby Turner, maybe this is an oversight and Bobby Turner is on the coaching staff, but could he be leaning towards retirement? Could Anthony Lynn also end up becoming running back coach? Could. Are they going to reach out to somebody else? We know Tom Rathman has retired. Could he be enticed to come back as running back coach?
Maybe.
Does Kyle Shanahan have somebody else that he'd be interested in getting? I think this is something to monitor because Bobby Turner is, in my opinion, the very best running back coach in the entire league. The attention to detail, the things that he sees and makes these running backs prepare for, it makes them understand every single person on the team's job and role for every single play. I think that this would be a huge loss for the 49ers. In fact, I think it might be up there with Mike McDaniel. And can Kyle Shanahan replace Bobby Turner if that happens? Because this is the reason he moved on from Tom Rathman, because Bobby Turner was coming with him.
Accurate. Yes. This would be huge.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than the Niners run game, and there is no one that has been as important to the run game for this team as Bobby Turner has been. And the way he's been able to coach this thing up, get these guys going. A lot of people will, Trey Sermon this, Trey Sermon that. Elijah Mitchell. Look what Elijah Mitchell did. Look what he did with Raheem Mostert. Just look at the names that he's had in his backfield. Matt Breida. What's Matt Breida done anywhere else? Nothing.
No.
A whole lot of nothing. Phenomenal in San Francisco. A whole lot of nothing anywhere else. Tevin Coleman being an RB1. Not an RB1 anywhere else in the league. He was never an RB1 in Atlanta. He was RB1 in San Francisco for the first year that he was there, and for a good chunk of the years that he was with San Francisco, he was RB1 to start the year off until these other running backs got going, and Breida and in Mostert down the road. Bobby Turner has taken whoever Kyle gives him and done the most with them. The absolute most with those guys. I think this season was the shining example of it. You lose Raheem Mostert early, you have no Jeff Wilson Jr., and Elijah Mitchell comes into his own and seizes the RB1 job.
And Jeff Wilson Jr. is a guy, too, that he developed.
That's true. We forget about Jeff Wilson Jr. That's another name in that roster, and that mold there. Bobby Turner is the linchpin of the running back room, and the linchpin of why there's been as much success in the running back category for the 49ers is being able to coach these guys up and get the vision where they need to be and be able to get their foot in the ground, get upfield, get the yards when you need to, and then have the big explosive plays when the opportunity presents itself. This would be huge. It would be a devastating loss. And I don't know of a name. Do you know of a single? I can't think of a single name that you could bring in other than Rathman, and that's only if he wants to unretire.
Yeah, I'm sure there's guys, right? Because there's been an extensive amount of people that have coached with Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan throughout the years. Kyle's always keeping his ear to the ground, monitoring different guys. I'm sure there's somebody. And the thing is with Bobby Turner is him and Kyle have such a great relationship. He'll be up front with Kyle Shanahan, so Shanahan would be able to prepare and get a running back coach, in. But I don't know if anyone will be able to do it at those legs. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be something to monitor. I'm hoping Bobby Turner comes back. The good news is that Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon got 1 year developing under Bobby Turner. That is a good sign for the 49ers. But there's a lot of coaching changes this year, and Bobby Turner adding to that would definitely hurt overall because he's a stabilizing force in that backfield.
100%. And there was a vacancy from Wes Welker going with McDaniels as well. So you have questions at the running back room. You got questions now at the wide receiver room. Who's going to take over? Leonard Hankerson is going to take over. Quality control coach, being promoted to wide receiver coach. And surprisingly, was drafted by Kyle Shanahan in Washington. So is a Kyle Shanahan guy, has been at multiple stops with Kyle Shanahan in his playing career in the NFL, went back to his old college, got some years there, work as a wide receiver coach, and then immediately started making his rounds and making his way back to San Francisco as a quality control coach last year. A guy that understands Kyle's system, understands what's expected of him, and seeing as Kyle is a wide receiver guy and puts high expectations on his wide receivers, the fact that this guy this early into his coaching career has already been promoted to as a wide receiver coach in San Francisco gives me the good feels.
It's a good sign. I mean, he's 31 years old. I mean, this guy's young in his coaching career. But if Kyle Shanahan's willing to sign off on somebody being his wide receiver coach, he definitely has a lot of confidence because you're right. He's more critical of wide receivers maybe than any position that there is because he played it. He learned so much from Ed McCaffrey and those guys, that were playing in Denver. I think that, Hankerson makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that never was the most talented. He was never one of the guys that was the biggest. He wasn't the fastest. He's one of those guys that had to learn. And he, carved out a decent career for himself in the NFL. A couple of stops with Kyle Shanahan along the way.
And then a couple without Kyle.
Yeah, and you know what? That helps. He's been in New England, so he's seen how other teams handle business.
True.
So he's going to be a good guy. And I guarantee Kyle wouldn't have hired him unless he thought he was the man for the job. And I do like that another young coach is coming up. Replacing Wes Welker's not an easy gig. Wes Welker was a very smart guy, very cerebral. He understood how to motivate his wide receivers. But I think Hankerson's up for the job. So let's see what the guy can do. He's been with the 49ers for a year, so let's see how he's ready to roll.
He's been with the Niners for the year, but been with Kyle for a lot longer than that and has been around the league. Been at stops in New England with Wes as well. So, I mean, we're not with Wes, but at the same location as Wes. I think it was a year after Wes had left to Denver.
And those guys.
So, I mean, this is a guy who's been to a lot of the same stops. He's been along the same path. And I think this is a good fitting of two parties there who understand each other, and Kyle obviously feels there's something there. Which is a positive. The Niners did lose an offensive line assistant in Butch Berry, who took the Denver O-line coaching gig, not head coaching gig, but the Denver line job. He is the main line coach there for the Denver Broncos. They also lost Richie Hightower to the Bears. Their special teams coordinator now. I know we talked about that as well, and I know there were some people joking on one of the live streams. Did the Bears not know how bad the Niners special teams was this last year? The Bears didn't feel it was obviously that bad. And when we did talk about it, in a couple of statistical categories, the Niners are top 5 in a couple of different statistical categories in special teams. There were just some glaring weaknesses. One of them was the return game or the kickoff coverage game.
Yeah, I think Richie Hightower is very well respected around the league. I think a lot of people like him. The fact that it's a lateral move means that either he felt his time was up in San Francisco or it was mutual, which I believe it was.
Probably mutual.
I think the 49ers were ready to move on, with the special teams there. Unfortunately, Richie Hightower is going to be gone, but his special teams didn't play up to potential. It had moments, right? When we called on them to have moments, they came through at the big times. I think him putting Jordan Willis in that Green Bay situation to block the punt. Jordan Willis wasn't set to be on that team, but he made a call. He was kind of shooting from the hip at the end. I think he was really going in there trying to make things happen, and he did. But I think he did burn up some currency during that season with how bad the special teams played. And it's not like they had played good over his tenure. So the 49ers need to make a move there, and Richie Hightower going to Chicago. It's not a huge surprise that he landed somewhere else because, like I said, he's very well respected. Let's see how his teams do there. But the Niners, they need to move on. It's another clean move. Let's see where they go with that.
True, and the name that's been floating, I mean, there's been the names, the base names, right? Yeah. We've heard the Joe Judge names and a couple other guys who are focal points, but none of them are available. Judge is back in New England, and a couple of the other guys have signed other places and taken other gigs. Not necessarily a special teams guys either, which means they're ready to move up and go different directions with their coaching path. But Tracy Smith, he's an assistant special teams coach with the Seattle Seahawks, and who has some ties and familiarity with San Francisco, was here during the Harbaugh days. And everybody loves themselves some Tony Montana 49ers special teams unit. This is a guy who was around during that time with the swagger, was a quality control guy at that time, and helped with special teams a lot. The assistant special teams coach with the Seattle Seahawks last year. This is a possibility. This is a guy that people at least should keep an eye on. The Niners could potentially bring in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anytime you have a guy that has success wherever he's won the league, even when he's with Houston, they were a good special teams unit. Seattle Seahawks were they were the top 5 in special teams this year. Adding an assistant special teams guy, given that promotion to special teams coordinator, might be the way that Kyle Shanahan wants to go. I think he's the most obvious name. It doesn't mean that he's going to be the guy, but at least there's a guy out there with some potential that Kyle Shanahan can go get. I think Shanahan was also just, taking his time, making sure he gets the guys that he wants. He's very smart about selecting the coaches. So if he ends up, hiring this guy, then it's going to be the guy that he ultimately wanted. I do think he was waiting to see what McVay was going to do, because if McVay ultimately left Los Angeles, there would have been coaches that would have been available that he could have went and grabbed. So he's been cautious, but now that is not going to happen, he's going to move forward with his plan. And so I think that this is something that is a potential there. And when we talked about Butch Barry going to Denver, Butch Barry was the assistant offensive line coach, and he's going to play for or coach for Nathaniel Hackett.
Yep.
And Nathaniel Hackett runs the same system. He comes from LaFleur's era. Everyone knows, Paul Hackett is his father, was a great offensive assistant for the 49ers for years, offensive coordinator for many teams. So he's going, and it was an upgrade. It was a big move for him as a promotion. He gets to go be in the same system. Yeah, the same system, and he gets to go be the line coach for them. So I think that was a nice move for him and another promotion.
Man, that Shanahan tree just keeps getting bigger.
It does
every step. Because anyone at this point, you see, that's not a Shanahan tree. I mean, it's an extension. It's an olive branch off the tree. I mean, anything that comes off the LaFleur and the McVay tree comes off the Shanahan tree at this point. Yeah. You have to be honest about that. The influence is going to be league wide here very soon. There's a reason why a lot of those three guys in particular are having a lot of their assistant coaches going places. All three of them came up together. All three of them are very, very close. They shared everything with each other. And now they're sharing all that with their assistants. It is a league-wide takeover that is happening at the moment, is what it feels like.
Yeah, even Taylor up there in Cincinnati, he was with McDaniel and LaFleur. So
yes,
I'm not McDaniel. I'm sorry, with McVay and LaFleur.
Yeah,
all these guys are kind of intertwined, and yeah, you're right. It's a movement. These young guys, these young cats that were all together under Mike Shanahan, and then eventually kind of spreading out. And they're taking over the league. The way that they're approaching football is different. This offensive system. So yeah, it's the copycat league, and the way that the West Coast offense spread, in the 80s and 90s, is similar to what's going on right now.
Resurgence now.
Yeah, it's a different style, but
definitely a different style. Not the same West Coast style, but it's slightly different. James Betcher, he was a defensive special assistant that came in this year to help DeMeco Ryans as he gets kind of just his feet wet. Very obvious, DeMeco Ryans is entirely capable. James Betcher, I think he realizes that too. He took the Bengals linebacker coaching job. He's not really needed as much in San Francisco. Good for the Bengals, because I think you and I both agree their linebacker play struggled at times. It's a good place for him to land. A team that's going to be very successful defensively was up and down at times, and their linebacker play was something that we questioned. And now you get yourself a nice coach there in Betcher who can hopefully shore up that linebacker room for the Bengals. That move surprised you at all?
No, I think that the 49ers brought in Betcher definitely to help DeMeco Ryans, formulate game plans, and also he's very good at blitzes. So he probably helped him in that area. But Betcher was, I think, hopeful that he was going to be able to land, a defensive coordinator job or something else. So he sees that, there's a kind of an area here where he's not going to be that place. So he's going to move on, and he's going to go see if he can't get to Cincinnati and then eventually ascend into that defensive coordinator role somewhere. I think that he's a good coach, and I think he was very valuable to DeMeco Ryans, but DeMeco Ryans was ready for the task and able
more
to handle
than capable.
And so now he's gonna go handle business on his own. But I think Betcher was a little bit of a loss, because I do think he helped in the game plan area and with blitzes.
Experience especially. I agree with you there. I do agree with you there. And then we lost two coaches to the University of Kentucky. And some of you may be going, what? Why are two guys going to the University of Kentucky? Well, number one, there were promotions. So Zach Yenzer, first and foremost, ends up going to Kentucky, becomes their O-line coach. Definitely promotion from what he was over here. And then Rich Scangarello leaves not too long after that to become Kentucky's offensive coordinator. And immediately, people said, I knew it all along. Scangarello didn't want to coach Trey Lance. He wanted Mac Jones. That's why he's going to Kentucky. Have you seen Kentucky's quarterback? Because he's not Mac Jones. If that were the case, if that was basically Mac Jones 2.0 at the University of Kentucky, and what was going on down there, then you'd have a point. But that's not what the University of Kentucky starting quarterback is. He's not Mac Jones. He's actually kind of a mobile guy who can extend plays and does a lot of similar things to Trey Lance. But if anything, it's a promotion. He's going to an up-and-coming program there in UK that's finally got their football program going in the right direction with a lot of young talent. And he sees opportunity to do big things there and potentially, I don't know, maybe land a head coaching job and make lots of money. Good for Rich Scangarello. Sucks for the 49ers, I think, a little bit, but a lot of people don't feel that way. They want Rich gone. They wanted Rich Scangarello gone. This is actually a good thing for San Francisco. How are you feeling about it?
I think that first off, the reason that he went to Kentucky was because their offensive coordinator left to come be the Rams offensive coordinator.
Accurate.
So they were looking to make a move. Rich Scangarello left the 49ers once before and went to Denver and was their offensive coordinator. And Drew Lock had his best season as a pro under Scangarello. But no, they weren't a fan of Scangarello's offensive, play calling. But I think that's what he wants to be. He wants to be an offensive coordinator. Talking about a guy that in his 40s wanted to work with Kyle Shanahan, so he slept on someone's couch. And came in as a quality control guy, and then eventually developed. He's somebody that wanted to learn this offense, and now he's going to go get to run that offense. That's what Kentucky ran last year. Now he's going to take over for that. But he sees potential, and whether that is him eventually becoming a collegiate head coach or getting back into the NFL, he wants to be an offensive coordinator. So the one easiest way to become an offensive coordinator is to go out there and call plays. He could have sat there and been quarterback coach for the 49ers, where it doesn't look like Kyle Shanahan was ready to promote him to offensive coordinator, right? He wasn't ready to promote him to pass game coordinator or anything. He was going to leave him as quarterback coach. So that was a signal to Scangarello that I don't see an avenue for me to be able to improve my positioning here. So I'm going to make a move and go to Kentucky and see what else can happen with that. To me, it makes sense for him, and it makes sense for the 49ers because obviously Kyle Shanahan didn't value him more than just a quarterback coach at this point.
Accurate. And in all honesty, I think that all Kyle wants right now is a quarterback coach. I don't think he wants a quarterback coach who has other things to worry about. I think he wants a quarterback coach that can focus on developing Trey Lance. And obviously, Scangarello, and shockingly enough, has bigger aspirations than being a quarterback coach because he left San Francisco already to do more than just be a quarterback coach. He came back to San Francisco to be a quarterback coach and hope that something, like you said, something else would come up. Maybe he gets a promotion, things of that nature. And you have a project now in Trey Lance. You have a guy that you're working on and developing. I'm not saying project is in bust or someone who can't do it, but a guy who needs work, has things that he needs to work on, and you want to be able to focus on those things with Trey Lance. You want the guy in charge of that to not have any other distractions. You want him developing himself fully to Trey Lance. And Scangarello has bigger aspirations than that. And I don't think he doesn't want to coach Trey. I just think he knows I could stay here another year, but I'm just postponing what I would truly love to do and what gets me going in the morning, right? Which makes me get up, enjoy drinking that cup of coffee and going to work every day, which is taking the next step and getting that much closer to being, whether that's an NFL head coach or an NFL offensive coordinator, doing that each and every day, the thing that I love most. Yes, I love working with quarterbacks, but this is what, gets me going in the morning. I talked about this. I went and watched, during our break, I went and watched a Ben Holt game where I used to coach. Mm-hmm. Hadn't watched any high school basketball, not a speck of it. Finally went and watched a game and walked in. It was great to see all the former guys that I used to coach. Great to see the former girls. All of that. It was fantastic. It was phenomenal. At no point, though, during any of that did I go, man, I want to come back and coach. At no point.
Yeah.
It's just there's certain things, right? You have to have that motivation to be the best version of that. And if it's not there, then you're not going to want to do it. And for Scangarello, being the quarterback coach in San Francisco was not something that was exciting enough for him to want to get up in the morning next year and do that every day, right? He wants that challenge. And he takes the O coordinator job at Kentucky, where you have an upstart team with a lot of promise and ran a similar system. And now you have opportunities because their O coordinator just went from Kentucky offensive coordinator for a football team and a college team that is not known for football, not known for good football. They put together one good season of football, one good year, and that guy is now the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams in the NFL. Scangarello is got to be sitting there going, "Hey, I coach in that same tree. I can do the same things. You're telling me in 1 year, if we replicate what they just did, that I could be a no coordinator in the NFL? Sign me up."
Yeah, especially because, like I said, Kyle Shanahan didn't promote him, and Mike McDaniel didn't take him with him.
Accurate.
This is a guy with offensive coordinator, ability. He did it before. I mean, it doesn't mean it was really great, but he's at least got that potential. So yeah, he's ready to move on, and I think that there's a couple of names of guys who could be available to take over that quarterback, role. I think first off, promoting Bobby Slowick, he could be a potential guy. He's already on staff. That could be a guy that moves up into that quarterback if you're looking to do that. The other name out there that we've talked about in many episodes is John Beck. Would the 49ers wait? And this is what I would do. Would they wait?
You're not even going to tease the cutback crews. This my decision. This one.
I would wait. Now, this is just me. This is not them. I don't know what they'll do. But he's working with Trey Lance during the offseason, right?
Accurate.
Why don't you, because let him work with him the entire, there's no restrictions on him working with him during the offseason, and then hiring him once it's time for mini camps and training camps.
And OTAs?
Yeah.
Just not have a quarterback coach because the plan the whole time is just to hire John Beck?
Yeah.
It's dastardly genius.
Yeah.
And they basically have an agreement in place. They both know, right? And people are going to call John Beck. He's like, I just like training. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I did it for a little bit. I did it for a stint. It was fun, but I was away from my family. I don't know how I feel. I'm just not. I don't feel like coaching right now. I just want to do this training stuff that I've been doing. It's a lot of fun. You just tell everybody that, and then a week before OTAs, all right, Trey, you're gonna take a break. All right, cool. All right, will I see you again? So he calls up Kyle. All right, I'm ready. Let's do
Yeah.
let's make the deal.
Well, I mean, until he signs the contract, right? He's
true.
not actually the coach of the 49ers. They can have whatever discussions about him coming on board if they want. But until you sign on the dotted line, it's not official. And I don't know how the NFL would feel about that, somebody.
I imagine not great.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll change the rule down the road, but this would be a great skirting of the rules.
Yeah, he could work with his quarterback coach the entire offseason and then bring that quarterback coach on to work with him the rest of the year. To me, it's genius.
It is. And he had the last couple of years, he's had stints as quarterback coach in the league, coming in for teams not necessarily beginning of the season, later in the year.
Yeah.
So he has done this before. I don't think he's done it for an entire NFL season, but this is a guy who we called John Beck the quarterback whisperer in the offseason.
Yeah.
Talking about, he was the guy that a lot of these teams were talking to about their quarterback play and what their quarterbacks were doing. This may not be a long-term thing with John Beck, but if you're trying to get Trey Lance to develop and you trust John Beck to be the guy to develop him, and that's where he's going to be spending the time in the offseason, why not just bring him on staff for a full year and make sure he gets the top-notch what you want out of Trey Lance for an entire offseason and regular season? I mean, it just makes sense.
You're literally talking about the guy that worked with him during the draft process and developed the pro day that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were going to go see. He put it all together. Who would know where Trey Lance started to where he is right now and what he's going to be doing better than John Beck?
And what he needs to do to be the guy that Kyle wants him to be come, week 18 playoffs of next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those ones that makes maybe too much sense. So we'll see if it actually happens, because it just seems like it would be
all roads lead to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's basically that, except all roads lead to John Beck being the quarterback coach for the 49ers in 2022. Maybe.
Or Bobby Slowick.
Or Bobby Slowick. It could be just that, Ant. It could be just that.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait to see what happens.
But if someone doesn't get hired for a while,
it's John Beck.
I'll be waiting on John Beck.
If no one gets hired, like if we're almost to the draft, John Beck is the quarterback coach for the San Francisco 49ers. You can almost guarantee that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think so too.
So Cutback crew, let us know what you thought about the 49ers coaching carousel and what is happening in San Francisco. Do you think all of these guys that are leaving San Francisco, is this a bad thing? Do you think coaching turnover is a terrible thing for the 49ers, and how can you maintain consistency if all these guys are leaving? Or do you think, like Ant and I think, that all these guys are leaving because you have incredible staff, you're developing, and you're putting in young guys that you trust and know in positions early in their career for them to learn and develop, so that way when this time comes right now where you start losing coaches, you can promote from within, and there's also guys throughout the league that you know that have coached with you before, that you've spent time with across the NFL, that you can bring back into the fold when the time is right, when the iron strikes hot. Seems like Kyle Shanahan has been doing just that, Ant. And I'm all for the moves that they've made. It sucks to see some of these guys go, but it seems like each and every time someone does, you promote from within or bring someone back into the fold that you used to work with, and things seem to work out for San Francisco.
Yeah, and we still have some open spots that need to be filled, around the. Now we need another defensive coach to help, with DeMeco Ryans.
Accurate.
I'm gonna throw this out there. I even tagged him on Twitter as, hey, Richard Sherman, what's up? Because Richard Sherman could come in easily and coach with DeMeco Ryans 1 year, and then DeMeco would be ready to move on, and you could put Richard Sherman in as the defensive coordinator. The line of succession needs to be there. You need to make sure you're ready to roll. And I think Richard Sherman could be somebody that could be an excellent defensive coordinator in this league and eventually a head coach. If he was interested in coaching, the 49ers would be a great move. And, if he could just go and bring some free agents along there with him, that'd be great.
Yeah, Stephon Gilmore.
Bingo.
Yeah,
how else would you know he's going to go west?
Let's just put it. I wonder how he could possibly know that. There's no way they're having conversations and that he's a confidant. But hey, it is what it is. We got tons of free agency stuff to talk about, but let us know what you thought about the coaching carousel. Let us know who you think should be the extra coaches they bring in. Who should the quarterback coach be? Who should the new special teams guy be? Who do the Niners need to address? And should there be a special defensive assistant like James Betcher this year that the Niners should bring in to be grooming, potentially, for a defensive coordinator spot? Should DeMeco Ryans leave next year? We want to hear from you, Cutback crew, and while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. That way we don't miss any of the content, because there's daily content coming at you, 11 a.m. Pacific time, every single day, on top of a live stream Thursday that they're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, Thursday we're going to get into it again, and there's going to be a lot of conversations all week. We have so much news that we're getting into, and then also, we have free agency coming up around the horizon. There's going to be plenty of conversations to have there. Are the 49ers going to be able to bring back all their guys? Are they going to need to reach out to other teams about, or other players from other teams? We're going to find out. This is going to be a fun time. This is an exciting time for the 49ers. because now we get to see how this team is going to start to be constituted. What Prague has come up with financially, what numbers he comes up for these free agents and who they're able to go target. Can we see a change? Are the 49ers going to go all in? We're going to be able to tell pretty soon, and it's going to be fun.
God, man, there's just so much there that you just said that people should totally get excited for. The Prague stuff, everything. I mean, literally everything you just said. On top of Jimmy's value, you're not going to want to miss any of these conversations that we're going to have all week long. We'll see you on the next one, Cutback Crew, and until that time, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.